Good morning, everyone. I hope you are well. On Thursday evening at sundown begins the 40 days of Elul. It's the month of teshuvah, meaning to return, and means a turning back towards God. The month of Elul is a month of retrospection, of looking at one's life, and not without judgment. There's no judgment, but just seeing what changes we'd really like to make. And I'm not talking about worldly things in a sense, though changing things on our outer can reflect our inner world and our relationship to God. But what I'm discussing is how we relate to God, how we relate to the best aspects of ourselves, or even the worst aspects of ourselves. What changes would we like to make? What improvements do we wish to make in the new year? The Jewish New Year is towards the end of this period, and it's a new start. So this period encompasses the new year. And so we're preparing, but not just sliding into it and it's tomorrow and woe. No, we are taking into account ourselves. We're preparing. This is a season of preparation and a season of forgiveness and a season of a new, fresh start. Similar periods exist in many of the faiths around the world. And it's so essential to have that period once a year. You could have this throughout the year. I have it continuously, self-evaluating. Oh, I could have done this a little better. Or how about this? And it's not in judgment. It's noticing, oh, okay. And it's a continuous betterment of ourselves and continuous being aware of ourselves and becoming better and better and better. In a way, our lives should be, in a way, a betterment. During this period particularly, we take that pause and we focus. We look and we do that deep work to deepen our connection to what's holy, to deepen our connection to wisdom, to the Shekhinah to guide us. So we walk on the path of holiness, righteousness, compassion, empathy, charity, forgiveness, and the other good things that are coming to my mind. We do a realignment. So on Wednesday, I will be speaking about the month of Elul, the period of the month of Elul and the return, and do any tikkun, any repairs, correction, restoration, or redirecting of our sailboat. We're fixing the sails. The sails are the things that catch the wind above a sailboat. Are the sails. We're repairing the hull, the wood. Just let's do a wooden sailboat, yes? It's very elegant. Think of a beautiful, elegant sailboat. The kinds that used to exist in the past more often. So we repair the wood, any leaks. We repolish the wood that might be a little worn or a little water damaged. We polish it up, the finish, so it has a nice shine. We see any sails that kind of need a little replacement in a way. The deep work. And we see how afterwards we feel better. Things are more aligned. We're ready to move forward in our journey. We're more equipped for any storms, for any periods where it feels very long and hard, where we feel alone, where we're between where we left and where we're going. And there's no land and there's no one else, but we have our boat and we've prepared. We have food and water. We've fixed it. We've done the best we could with it. And we're continually doing little things on it to maintain it on our journey through the next year and our journey through life. And how do we relate to people on the sailboats that are also on their journey next to us, and the animals that come along our boat? And how do we navigate through life's storms, life's beauty, life's scarcity, the lack of things, and life's bounties? How we navigate. And so this is a period where we're going to go deep. So this Elul 2026 with HP Shalom, is a journey into divine presence. A journey into divine presence, relating deeper ways to the presence of God, how it relates and how we can feel it ourselves. Be in the flow of the Shekhinah, to be able to touch in and relate to as well with God's ruha, God's energy. So it could be the wind in our sails, the wind that moves our boat and guides it. The winds that move us forward and that gives us direction. And how to improve ourselves, work with ourselves, redirect ourselves, and to release the aspects, the things within ourselves that are barriers, blocks, or energies that keep us from being able to go with that divine flow. that keep us from relating to those pure aspects of ourselves. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. Happy Sunday. So I wish to speak about the period of Elul leading into the high holy days, which are the days where we reflect upon our year and we sort of make straight our path and we enter into alignment with Hashem, with Adonai, a very important part of the year. And it's really at the core of everything that I teach on returning into alignment and repair our ways and our lives and sort of redirect onto better and nicer highways, which results in very nice, better ways to live and happier lives. So really, we're entering a period of focus and introspection, assessing our lives and going deeper inwards, which I personally really love to do. And but it could also be challenging. Sometimes we see things we don't want to see, and we encounter things that we feel we need to address, blockages or difficult conversations we need to have with people, or different situations that we've been avoiding about ourselves, about our lives, about everything. But also realizing the great blessings we have to those who are religious, to have that connection and tradition to God. Or if you're more non-traditionally spiritual, that you have a desire to connect with the truths of the universe, with teachings that point to living a better and more aligned life, and being open to teachings that come from a religious tradition, but realizing how it can apply to you generally and specifically, that there is guidance to be had from something more traditional, and that it could also bless your life. These teachings are open to everyone. I just base them in the Judaic religion, but the themes and the concepts are universal. They apply to all mankind, in that they speak to the truths of life and how to live a good life, and across the many different religious beliefs that I have studied, indigenous, Eastern, Western. Interestingly enough, they all have the same bedrock of teachings, and they point to the same path on how to live a good life. They might have different ways of going about it, different languages, different focuses. Some focuses are good, maybe not bad, but you don't know exactly because it's details and it's different and there's more built on. But when you get to the core of what it is, it's about right action, truth, living a good life, honesty, integrity, charity, empathy, generosity, care of yourself, your family, your society, your environment, being in alignment. Native Americans call it being in alignment with the Great Spirit. You see, it all has the same bedrock. Why? How? I'm not going to get too much into that. But the bottom line is, why? How? Because our lives are based on the same underlying truth, of frequency, of alignment. 1 + 1 = 2. Humanity at the base, all rests on the same underlying truth of what is in alignment energetically. And everything else is built on top. How different cultures see it, different rules, different religions. But when you get to the core of the energy of alignment, because alignment, we could conceptualize it, right? We think what it is a definition, and different people view different ways of being aligned. Some correct, not some correct, not some are not correct. Some are purer and more truthful, and some are a little off, right? But that's concepts. Alignment is a center. It's an energetic center, which I try to point towards through meditation, mantra, yoga, acupuncture. That balance. And that balance is an energetic truth that's not subject to any cultural overlay, and it's not different for different human beings. Alignment is alignment. And alignment, and what makes you aligned or not aligned, the path you walk leading to something, the energy of alignment is based on honesty, integrity, the virtues, what I've just listed before. That's how the energy manifests. Aligned does not lead to hatred, aggression, lies, manipulation, not caring, aggression, violence. See, that's not aligned. We just look at the definition. We all know that's not being in your center, and it's not aligned. So you look at what it is. And at the core, it's an energetic posture from which manifests certain fruit. Like it said, you know what a person is based on their actions. It could be underlying causes, psychological, childhood trauma. Yes, but that's the cause of maybe why it's a thorn bush or it bears poisonous fruit that poisons the environment. It's because there's a misalignment and you see it. So the saying is, you know a tree by the fruit it bears, right? Because it's aligned, it's a certain way. It's misaligned, it's a certain way. And it manifests in a different way. So the core, and the core of what I try to show through different examples, different methods, different conceptual ways of explaining it, because some people might understand it more one way or the other, or my English is too complicated in one way. People of certain cultures might not understand it in that way. And then I explain it a different way, and then it clicks. And then when it clicks, they might understand it in a way that they didn't understand it before from another teaching I had. It's all about entering into that alignment from which everything else comes from. It's energy. It's center. Yes? So when we take a moment at the beginning to center from getting here, for me, it's always pulling last-minute images, fine-tuning the mic so hopefully my voice comes out as best as it can through this machinery I have going on here to hopefully make it sound good. It's a scramble. Thoughts are racing. Tension. I'm late. That's my tension. Or people are rushing and they're like, oh, I'm late. I hope HB Shalom's going to be a little late today, this morning. Otherwise, I'm missing. And then you come in with a momentum. And you can't focus. And you're a little what we call scattered. That's a form of, well, misalignment. Not being fully aligned because we're not fully calm and anchored with our core. There's a wind element, a momentum, that rushing. Even we feel it. We feel a little lighter. We feel not grounded. That's a wind element. That's more prominent. That's more stronger. That's stronger than the other elements of like earth, which grounds. So we're flighty, we're moving. So we try to find that core by breathing, taking a little glass of water, taking that few moments to align by putting our hands together at the chest level with the right angle of the fingertips. That forces, yes, it forces, it causes, but it's a direct act, so it really makes it happen to a certain extent, causes the body to align. And then the wind element naturally settles. And with it, our mind becomes calm. And then our wisdom, our intelligence, our ability to see concepts one might not have considered before, and to understand the deeper, more profound levels of it open up for us. Because we enter an alignment, and the complete tools of what's our birthright as human beings start becoming accessible the more and more we enter into alignment, as the current of life flows through us and aligns more with the upper sephirots or the upper chakras. And I've just launched into the complete teaching when I wanted everybody to center first. So why don't we take a moment and let's center. And but this is a little bit of a summary of what I'm going to be speaking about for the next couple weeks, in conjunction with this period of re-entering into alignment to repair what's broken. This is a constructive time to turn inwards. In the Jewish religion, this is the time where we look at our lives, and then we purify, and then, God willing, we move forward from this period to the year to come, in a better, stronger way. Very wise person suggested to me that I should follow more the liturgical periods of the year and speak about them. Last year I spoke about Rosh Hashanah, but I left out a few of the other ones. This year, I'm going to be particularly mindful when there's one of the holy days coming up to engage what it means, because they're significant for our lives. They assist us. They're reminders. And they have a historical context. And it's important to remember history. It helps us understand how to engage today through their example and what happened in the past, as well as align us with something that was a little simpler. An agrarian society, one based on farming and fields and cattle, without electricity, without automobiles, without the complexities of modern life, shows us what alignment looked like back then in a way that's clearer for us, because it was based more in harmony with the seasons and more in harmony in a simpler form of family structure and society. But that same alignment that's found back then, we're no different than they are. And there's much we can learn. So when we enter these days of Elul, to bring it all back, we are reflecting, we are looking inwards, and we are making decisions. Where would we like to go? Where would we like to be? Hopefully in greater alignment. Where are we now? No judges, no judgment. Just a matter of where are we now? Right? So I look out the window, it's morning, it's 8 o'clock, the birds are chirping, the window's not open. It needs to be open so I could breathe. That's where I am. It's very matter of fact. There's no judgment. Oh, I should have opened the window. What am I thinking now? It's stuffy. I feel a headache coming on. How is that helpful? That throws me off my ability to teach. So you just look. Okay, what do I need to do to get where I would like to be? Right? So I looked and I'm like, oh, something's out of position. Window closed. Well, no judgment. I open the window. So we look at our lives without judgment. And we look to see, okay, here is where I am. Here is where I think I can be by the end of this period of time. And greater than that, where would I like to go? What path do I wish to be on for the year to come? And then ultimately, depending on where we'd like to be and our ability to do that, directs where we are next year, the year after that, and for the rest of our lives. But we don't get overwhelmed by that. We're focusing for the next 40 days or whatever period of time it is. I didn't calculate though till Yom Kippur how many days it is. But we focus on that, making that repair. So we're in a good position at Yom Kippur to move forward into a new year. Yes? There's a healing that we undergo. A realignment. A new understanding of ourselves. And God willing, since you've decided to take some of your time to listen to me, God willing, HP Shalom is able to help to provide some tools, some ways to go about it in a newer, fresher way that hopefully helps. So, see, we're all on the path. And we can be flying high in a Learjet, and then suddenly it becomes very grounded, and we, it's different. And then you work with those circumstances. And those circumstances could last a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple years. But you know how to get back to a certain thing. And then you work towards it. And the more you go and you bounce around the Pinto, the truck, the Ferrari, the Learjet, even touch a little bit on that spaceship. And you go around, depending on what it is, over the months and the years, you become aware on how to move it and how to shift it, and it becomes easier and easier and easier, and you don't get as stuck. But sometimes you're in a truck for a while, and you don't resist it because you're clearing things. You're working through deeper layers. And one day, you're not just having tastes of the starship. Suddenly, one day, you may have complete stability, and there is never again a Ferrari or truck or anything else. You're in that spaceship heading out. Your way of understanding and living are completely transformed. You've entered stability, unbreakable stability. And that is the starship. Living saints, prophets, full Emmanuel manifestations, they are examples of it. Baal Shem Tov, holy figure, right? Be the Ari. They're there in Jewish tradition and other traditions. They're models. They show us how we can live. And some are 80% there, some are 100, which is like, oh my God, so where? Because that's literally divinity manifested. Or they're close. Or they're very close in certain areas of their life. In other areas, there's little problems. But those areas where they're really there, they bless us by understanding and learning that. They bless us by us seeing how they lived, by their accounts of their lives, how they spoke, what they did, what they didn't do, their teachings, if they gave teachings. Some of them, it's just the example, and then other people wrote about them, or they wrote themselves texts with explanations, or they just spent their whole life in prayer, and there's not a whole much going on, but the community were like the energy that came from him, and they describe the effect that that person had on them. And then you understand their teaching was their energy. They engage with the starship. And that's our birthright. And I would like to offer that to you as that being the end goal. The decisions we make during this period of time, I pray to God, put us all on that path that leads to that. It's what I call 100% Emmanuel manifestation. It's the goal to be a living manifestation of God on this planet in His full purity. It does not mean we're God. Be careful. It may have happened in a certain way, like God deciding to come and take a full human form, if it ever happened. Not commenting on that. But can we take ourselves as human beings, however flawed we are, and make us as close to a living manifestation of purity as we are as a human being, and embody the virtues and qualities of God: charity, wisdom, compassion, correct actions. You see, that doesn't make us God. It makes us like gods. L-I-K, my accent. L-I-K, wow, I just did it again. L-I-K-E, like God. Similar to, embodying the qualities that are comparable to God's to the extent we can, because His empathy, compassion, wisdom by far extends that we are capable of. Just because it's so, and we can't understand it, it's so massive, it's beyond our limited thinking, because we're at a certain frequency on this planet. If our minds ever went there, honestly, I feel like we would stroke out. We would have a stroke because it's too big, it's too mammoth, the energy's too expansive. It can't embody here. But the path is to be as close as we can get to what the Torah, the Tanakh, the sacred texts, what we know in our inner being as being aligned, as we can be. And God is not asking of us perfection. He is not asking of us to be 100% manual manifestation here. It's rare, very rare, very rare. But that doesn't mean you're not one of those people that can attain it. You could be. You don't put that as the pressure of becoming. You might not be. But is that your goal of hoping you could be, and you point yourself in that direction and repair and improve your life? You tikkun your life, your thoughts, your actions, your wisdom. You tikkun your repair, tikkun your alignment. You repair and realign, so you have the intent and you start making decisions that can lead to that. That you go from being completely off to a 20% manifestation or a 30%. You're moving along the road. Your actions in the future, in the present and leading into the future, are more and more aligned, holier and holier. You're no longer doing bad acts or whatever, or out of alignment or whatever that you did in the past. That is what God cares about. Where are you headed? What's your intent? Do you regret what's done? And are you making, and you don't live in that regret, you don't live in that judgment, that just keeps you stuck. Okay, I did that. How could I repair and move forward in a better way and have that redemption? That coming to terms and finding and asking for God's grace, and then working to a better future for yourself. That is what God cares about. It's written in the texts, and I've discussed it before. I could find it back in the Torah, and I'm sure it's all over the Tanakh. God's compassion knows no bounds. We cannot quantify it in our minds. What we think might be unforgiven is not that limited scope. What we think cannot be forgiven is a limited human scope. We cannot know the mind of God. We cannot know the level of compassion and forgiveness that He has. And the sacred texts say that it's beyond what we think is forgivable. This is what they say. Period there. Not really up for debate. Because we're limited. It's expansive. God's expansive. He's the embodiment of love. What other people might think, the judgment of God, the vindictiveness, that's not it. Pardon the judgment. It's a misunderstanding. God is the embodiment of love. Alignment is living in love. God created us out of love. 100% Emmanuel is an embodiment of love. If you think about it, empathy is love. Charity is love. Doing the right thing is an act of love. It's of care. It's of alignment. What's aligned and what's holy is living in peace, in shalom. You love, you live in shalom. Do we see how it all lines up? So if God is the embodiment of shalom, the embodiment of love, and love forgives. Our job, for lack of a better word, is to repair and put us on the path of alignment and do things to help strengthen that. When we fall off during the coming year, and we're humans, no judges, we notice it and we make that re-intention, that recommitment to be like, oh, okay. And you repair what happened. You ask God for forgiveness. I've lapsed again. And then you're like, okay, I need to fix it. This is what I did wrong. How do I go about not falling into that again? But it's also not the intent. Well, each time I do it, I'm just going to ask God for forgiveness and that just takes care of it. And that's how you go about your life. God is no idiot. There's no genuine repair or intent. You're just trying to game the system. Very American saying. Gaming the system means to exploit or manipulate the rules and procedures of a system. So asking for forgiveness each time with no general intent, knowing that God is all forgiving, we think, it don't work. So we work and we live and we direct and we reorient ourselves. That is the period of that we are currently in, of Elul, is a period of preparation, introspection, and return, which precedes the days of awe, where you really get into the grit and really take that period of 10 days to focus. For certain traditions, it's over a month. So everything I've just said was nowhere in my notes and just kind of flowed. So I'm not even really going to engage in anything that I prepared to talk about, which is perfect. What happened was an introduction. I had the intent of spreading the teachings out for several weeks. And look what happened. I really set the overall concepts where we will gradually, over the next 5 weeks, go a little deeper into and sort of bring in the details and bring in how to go about it and bring in a deeper understanding and layers. So I'm just very happy it flowed out this way, because this is really perfect. And I haven't overspoken, because I want to have a period of prayer and meditation and sing the Mishabera, because everything out of alignment, everything hostile, aggressive, bad decisions, bad thoughts, lack of wisdom, everything works and goes back to a proper alignment, back to God, back in keeping with the teachings, to repair, to healing. And El Na Refan Allah is a very sacred prayer, mantra of healing. Mishabera, the version that I have, in all the versions, but this one sung, is extremely, extremely powerful prayer. It's a prayer that's sung. So when we go into it, maybe I'll put up the words first, read it in English, if you can't read Hebrew, and see what we're saying. We are invoking God, not provoking, invoking, calling in God, lining him up and reminding him of things, of his covenant, of his being with us in the past, and asking for a healing. Very, very, very powerful. Because this whole 50 days, 40 days, I have to count how many it is on the calendar, is more along the lines of 40 days, but it's a period of repair, of El Na Refan Allah, El Na Refan Alo. God, please heal her. God, please heal him. God, please heal us. God, please heal me. Don't ever forget yourself. But in this period of focus, we're focusing on ourselves. Okay to focus on yourself. This is eyes turned inwards, not with judgment, but a clear assessment, a clear looking. What we did over the past years, last year, where we are, engagement in that deep reflection, and healing. And then in Yom Kippur, the forgiveness and the fresh start with hopefully the right intentions and putting into effect the right changes. So next year, when you head into the period of Elul, you're in a different place, in a better place. So when you engage in that reflection next year, you're not exactly where you were. You're in a better place. And the reflection is, oh, wow, I made this progress. That's really good. Because you're realizing there's a way to improve, and you are. And then you engage with where you are next year. And you're like, okay, so this helped. I should continue with this, but I did this off, but it's not as bad or less often, right? Remember the white rocks and the black rocks in the pocket that I talked about a couple weeks ago, right? So you see, oh, there's more white rocks. Well, okay, so how do I go about next year of doing more acts of purity and correctness and less acts that are not in alignment, the black rocks? And that's how you work along the path. So I'm going to quickly look at my notes and speak just about Elul. I'm not even going to get into the chakras and the nadis. That will be in the weeks to come, because I'm going to weave in the teachings on the chakras during this period, because I promised you that I would teach them, and I'm not going to put it off any longer. But this is a great period to speak about the tree of life and how it works with our bodies. Alignment is found in our bodies through our energy channels. It is found in our minds, our desires, our wants, our thinking, our emotions. Then hopefully with energy, pure, our minds aligned, we connect with the upper Sephiroth, the wisdom and compassion of God. And we connect with God, and His blessings become stronger because we're in His flow. And things get easier and easier and easier as you walk along the path, because we're in more and more alignment, and we put out fewer and fewer energies that are out of alignment. And then things come into the flow. Yes, this is not new agey. This is very, 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 very old. Just not as common nowadays. Yeah, teachings come, teachings go, teachings become obscured, not common, very common in some parts of the world, less common in one, openly taught in one part of the world, more secret in the others. Whoa, 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 whoa. But there's cycles. They come and they go. In the Western world, this ain't normally as taught, but it does exist in the Western world, very much so. Just have to find it. I hope this helps. So the month of Elul, I'm now finally on my notes. Oof. Month of Elul is preparation, introspection, and return. So Elul is the 12th and final month of the Hebrew calendar, leading up to Rosh Hashanah. The name Elul is often understood as an acronym for I just really don't want to butcher the Hebrew, but let me try. Because it's from the Song of Songs, chapter 6, verse 3. Ani lo dudi van dudi li. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. This suggests that the month is one of loving return not fear-based repentance. And I'm going to really speak about that theme in the coming weeks. But loving reunion with the divine. Let me say this again. It's actually a very traditional teaching. So it might sound different and not usual for certain people due to concepts that have kind of grown, and I will speak about that in the coming weeks. But let me just say this again, because this is kind of what is going on with this coming period. It's not a period of fear and judgment, life and death. No. Those concepts came on in the diaspora and it sort of layered on. I was very careful when I researched. Traditionally, this period is considered a period of loving return. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. Not fear-based repentance, but loving reunion, realignment with God. Every day of Elul, the shofar, the ram's horn, is blown to awaken us, to awaken our soul, to wake us up from our patterns, to call us into reflection, call us into awareness, to change, to decisions, to a reorientation, a movement in our car to a different lane, to an off-ramp. There's 2 ramps ahead of us. There really is 2 ramps ahead of us in this season. We're in our car in LA often, right? One freeway is to the right and the other one is to the left. Right? The 405 to the 5, the 405 to the 101. One goes to the left, one goes to the right, or one goes straight and one goes to the right. So I'm going to give you the cheat sheet on which one to take. You do not want to have the one that is straight unless you're a full 100% manifestation. Then you better stay on the road that you're on. Exactly. Don't deviate. You go straight. So pretty much for the rest of us, we need to turn off to a different freeway because that's a repair, a realignment, to turn. And it's not where we're on the wrong freeway. We are on the right freeway. We are where we are. No judgment. No judgment. Not helpful to turn the knives inwards against yourself. Where do we go? Where do we want to go? That's a change. So we are moving us where we are now to a new path, a new road. We are perfectly fine where we are, but there's a fork in the road. Like Robert Frost's poem, beautiful poem. Second. Let's see. Yes, here it is. Oh, his most famous poem. Yes, we do bring in culture at HB Shalom. Let's see. If I could pull it up. Used to know this by heart, but it's been a while. Yeah. Well, you know what? It actually completely works. So I did a little quick reading to make sure it didn't head into an interpretation that didn't quite help. But let's take a moment of one of the most beautiful poems that has ever been written in the English language. I believe Robert Frost was an American poet. It's been a long time. Give a little thing. Well, from California, Shalom. Was born in San Francisco. Does it even say when he was born? Oh, here we go. Born in 1874. Wow. Died in 1963, age 88. So, full American poet, educated at Dartmouth. Wow, very impressive. The Ivy League school, and also did Harvard University with no degrees. Well, these poets. So, very American. He had, yeah, I saw it here. It's important to understand a little bit of what you're reading because you realize that he earned 4 Pulitzer Prizes. Those are the highest prizes in literature in America. Well deserved. So this is Robert Frost, one of the most famous American poets that's ever lived. The poem is The Road. Again, my accent. The Road Not Taken. 2 roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. But be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. So as for that passing there, had worn them really about the same. And both the morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Beautiful. Just actually one of my favorite poems. So, do we choose the road less traveled by? We see the road that most people travel on in this planet. We see it on the freeway. We see it in our office place. We see it in our politics. We see it in our family dynamics. We see it everywhere. I don't need to speak about it. Or do we choose a different path? Path of different mitzvot? A path of turning inward to repair? A path of turning outward to repair and improve our world to the extent that we can? Sadly, that is the road less traveled by. Sadly. But do we decide to take it? Period of Elul. Are we preparing to take that road that all the religions and societies and spiritualities of this world that are good point us towards? And as he says, that made all the difference for him. There's one point in the poem that doesn't quite line up. The other road is not just as fair, meaning it's not just as good as the first road. There's one road that leads into the dark woods, and we are knowledgeable enough and aware enough and have, God knows, enough examples to see it clearly. It's not like beautiful pastures and then suddenly you're in a dark wood and you're like, how did I get here? Everything was great. I didn't know. We all know. So one path is we see the dark woods, the wolves, God knows it's not the path you want to go. And you see that you would do bad actions there. You see there's bad results and you see you're perpetuating violence and anger. And, we're not dumb. Let's just not pretend and fool ourselves. We know where certain instincts and misalignment lead us. Just look backwards the last year and we see that. No judges. Some it's minor, some it's huge, some's in between. Some situations we're like saints, and otherwise, other situations we are so far from that. So we look. Then we look at the other side, the path of repair, the path that leads to nicer and broader pastures. There may be some woods to get there because we're currently in the woods. We have our habits, but we see the light. We see the pasture on the other side. And even if we can't, the holy books say that it's there. We have a map. God willing, you have HP Shalom to bring in years of study and contemplation and hopefully wisdom to say there is glimmer down that path, even if you can't see it. The holy books, read them. It's very clear. They inspire, they guide. Higher religions are based on them. Why? They provide the map. So we have a map. Good actions, good mitzvot, realignment leads to the daylight, takes us out of the woods. But not in the woods. It's really great. But we could look at the field and then we see a path leading to the woods. We go backwards. Or we see a path leading to better pastures. It's less rocky, it's less off. The path becomes straight. It's no longer winding. It's no longer up a mountain. It's endless struggle. We make straight our path to God. And if we're not certain what to do, we ask people, but we all know what's right or wrong. Spoken about it many times. We have that inner knowing. If we're honest, we honestly know what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing. We have that inner compass, right? We know which way is south, north, west, and east. We know what's good, what's bad, what's healthy, what's not healthy, what's wrongful, and what's right. How? Why? How is that possible? Because the cathedral of God lives within us. That light is in us. The Shekhinah is in us, no matter how buried it might be. That is that inner knowing, that voice that says, no, that's not right. Now, whether we could follow it or not is a decision. And sometimes it's not a decision. We're in a river of habit and we hear the voice, but our reaction's too strong and it overwhelms the voice. That's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's okay in the sense that we're trying and we're on the path. So we work to being able to allow the voice to overcome what our reaction might be. See, we're working with 100% good intent and we're really, really trying. And we bring in helps and aids, psychology, behavioral therapists, whatever it might be, to assist us that our urges do not get the better of us. Or we become more devout, or we really read the holy books to really immerse ourselves into a new way of thinking. It's a choice of every moment, of every day, of every second, of every moment. We live in the present. Every moment is fresh, 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 new, new. Renaissance, 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 renaissance. We live in the spark of consciousness that is millisecond to millisecond. The past and the future really do not exist. They do exist, it's a history, and the future is in the future, but we don't live in either one. We live in the spark of life, which lives in the current moment. As soon as I say the first syllable, that syllable was already in the past. As the words come out is the present moment. Each part of the word, each like H, when I say A, that's that moment of there. Ish, that's another moment. Each moment is fresh. There's a great blessing in that, because with each moment being fresh, we're not tied to it, the previous moment. We're not tied to our previous actions. We might have the misalignment that needs to be repaired. We might have the strong force of habits, like a fast moving river, and you just pull down it. Right? And you have to learn to calm the river, because there's no such thing as a fast moving river. In this, it can be, but it's fast because we have such a strong force. We're making, it's like the river is what it is, but we're moving fast down it. That's it. In the moment, oh, there we go. Oh, this is profound. Here we go. And this is the truth. The present moment is calm, full of compassion, fresh, new. It's virginal. Nothing can color it. Nothing can taint it. Nothing. It's purity. Complete purity. It's the inner cathedral. Purity. Shekhinah manifested in us, present moment. But then we happen to it. And that's the layers of dirt and clutter and habits. So the river is actually extremely calm, very fresh, perfect, not too hot, not too cold, moves in the right momentum. That's life. If it's stagnant, doesn't move, well, that's death. So it has a movement of life and a vitality. It has chi, prana, living life force. Let's see, I'm moving into the Kundalini teachings. So prana, living life force, the Shekhinah, that, another word, that animates and gives us life. And there's a flow. One moment leads to the next moment. If there's no movement leading to the next movement, then we've left, right? So there's a flow, but it's calm. The momentum in this speed and being trapped is what we bring to that force, through misalignment in habits and our karma, our previous mitzvot. So it actually doesn't move. We are moving. Very important point. Why? Because it gives us 100% power to change. If the movement was natural, we'd be fighting it. We would have the deck of cards would be stacked against us. We stack our own cards against us, and it's not necessarily us. It could be what happened to us in our youth and what's currently affecting us, right? So it's not all about us and our fault, but the movement to act a certain way. Because if we think about it, the saints would be behaving in a slightly different way. And it doesn't mean we're passive and all loving. We can say no, and we can remove ourselves from situations. Doesn't mean it's all good and fine and we just boom. No, we have our hands on the steering wheel and we move with wisdom and confidence and alignment. But are we moving in the rhythm of what holy people are? That's the standard. In the rhythm of what Torah and Tanakh and the sacred texts say should be. In the rhythm and alignment with the commandments. Yes? And if we are, then we're living in the present and we have that alignment and we're living in the pure waters and movement and momentum and environment of the real reality, the present moment and its freshness and its qualities continue into the future. It's the present is the same in the past and in the future because we're in alignment. So the movement and the unbalanced and the waves that we have is what is that human nature, our condition, what affects us, no judges, that is layered on top of the inner cathedral. So it gives us full power to work with it. And we're not creating something. We're not reaching outside of ourselves to bring something in that's foreign, that's not of us. Because of us, at our core, is pure purity. The purity of God lives within us. The Shekhinah is within us. The altar and covenant and the ark is within us. Because we're children of God, it's our birthright. Can't be fully removed from God, otherwise you can't be here because everything's of God. Yes, I've spoken about this for the last year and a half, and I'm kind of layering it all together. So if something I say is like, oh, that's out there, try to find the teaching back that I spoke about that, and it explains in greater depth what each part is. But for people who've been with me for a while, I hope you understand what that is. So with that concept, change is possible. We are simply returning. It's a return to God, a return to alignment. And this is what this period calls us to do, to return. So this is a restorative period, a healing period. We return into alignment, into the life force, the purity of the Shekhinah that is alive at 100% within our inner cathedral. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 33. You shall walk in all the way that Yahweh, that's exactly the word that's used in the book, so I'm not going to hide from that, or Yahweh Vaheh. You shall walk in all the way that Yahweh Vaheh, your God, has commanded you, so that you may live. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6. In all your ways acknowledge him, capital H, and he, capital H, will make your paths straight. To return to God, following the commandments, the way our inner voice tells us to act, opens the blessings of that alignment. So energetically, by entering into alignment, we fix and heal, and the path becomes straight. So that's one way physically of how it happens, because in alignment leads to alignment. That's just an energetic truth. The energy is, and the laws of energy, it's very scientific. It's not out there. The energy works a certain way. 1 + 1 = 2. 5 + 2 = 7. Energy works a certain way. It's the laws of energy. So you make it straight, you get that. But also what it's saying, the more obvious teaching, he will make your path straight. So you acknowledge, so if you're religious, you're acknowledging God. If you're more spiritual, you acknowledge the truths of good actions and the ways of being. And you acknowledge that, you say that's the way it is, and then you follow it. And your path becomes straight, okay? The religious interpretation, which I follow, but doesn't mean the other ones are wrong. It's just a different way, an additional layer to the previous two truths I've mentioned. This layer, the religious devout way, so you acknowledge God, you acknowledge Hashem, and Hashem will make your path straight. That's the blessings of God. You get blessings at the other levels, but they're more by the nature of energy, right? So this is more of a religious, spiritual blessing that's beyond what we do. So we do the rest, and it's 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 5 = 7. That's just the laws of energy, really not debatable. And as you move along the path and you have a greater understanding, you'll realize that's what it is. This is saying, in all your ways you acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. This is saying, acknowledge God, and I would add respectfully, and you make efforts to walk the path. This is saying 1 + 1 = 7. Because he will make your path straight invokes a blessing. And the blessing of God means you don't have to walk the linear way. 1A + B = C. Or to get to New York, you have to hit all these cities along the way and change all these freeways. When you acknowledge him, and this is the religious path, because you're in alignment and he's your God, you could just end up in Chicago, or somehow, versus everybody needs to change all these lanes and make all these decisions. For whatever reason, the highway that you're on, you don't have to change it, and you just end up right in Chicago. Because the road we're on isn't the same for everyone. And the length of time that it takes us to get there isn't the same for everyone. The obstacles we have to overcome are not the same for everyone. And some people who have the same obstacles might somehow get through them faster and some slower, and that's part of their condition. What this is saying, if you acknowledge God, you'll get there faster because you have the blessing on top as well. That's the beauty and blessing of religion. It's not all on you. It's not having to get through what you have to work through. And it's just stuck in a certain, this is it, and you have to do this and go through all these problems and obstacles and quote unquote work to and working against your propensities to get through it. God will help you get through it faster. What you thought might take a year takes a week. Or it may take a year, but there's less pain and trauma or obstacles in that year. That makes sense. Devotion and intent and getting closer to God provides blessing and help. And that is what Proverbs chapter 3 verse 6 is saying, in my humble opinion. It's also saying the other two layers that I mentioned. Psalm 25 verses 4. So let me just speak about the Psalms generally. They're all about devotion and love of God. The person who writes clearly loves God, and he's dealing with difficulties in life, some of the passages, and he turns to God and he struggles. But it's so inspiring, the level of devotion that is articulated in that book. It is some of the most beautiful poetry that's ever been written, but it's definitely some of the most beautiful poetry that exists in the Bible. And it really inspires, at least me. And you see the devotion in the humanity that is brought into these passages and the calling out to God for help in a very human way. The writer is clearly on the path and he's working in the struggle and he's working with God. So I just want to offer that about the Psalms. And this chapter, in this verse, 25 verse 4, speak to that. Make me know your ways, Yahwéh. Teach me your path. So you're asking God for help. Teach me how your ways are, how to walk in alignment with you. Help me know it. Help me teach it. And, implicitly, help me walk it. And there's a choice. Psalm chapter 119, verse 30. I have chosen the way of faithfulness to God and his teachings and his, commandments. Do not steal, do not kill, do not commit adultery, and all the guidance that the saints have mentioned of what a holy walk is like. So I have chosen the way of faithfulness. I have set your ordinances before me. You follow the teachings and the guidance and the laws, and you follow what he asks. There's a decision. It's a fork in the road. One second. Yes, so ordinance is, his laws, what he asks us to do and how he asks us to behave. Yeah, so ordinances, sometimes you have to dig a little bit to really get the definition. Means God's rules or guidance. Well, it's more rules because he makes it very clear for how life should be lived. Ethical instructions like honesty, fairness, and care for others. So basically what it's saying, I have set the rules before my eyes as my guide. In other words, I choose to live by God's way, not my own impulses, not by my habits, and not by my misalignment. I choose to change, basically. So that is the fork in the road that's ahead of us. And in this month of Elul, we start turning and looking at ourselves and make that decision to make change. And we ask God, like in Isaiah chapter 26, verse 7, the path of the righteousness, the path of the righteous is level, meaning it's flat. There's no hills, there's no mountains, it's not unbalanced. It's an even, smooth path. So the path of the righteous is level. You, O upright one, meaning God, make smooth the way of the righteous. God assists and he helps us on our path when we act in accordance with his way. When we're aligned with the Shekhinah, we get the benefits, the blessings, and the empowerment of the Shekhinah. So we're no longer just human beings walking in somewhat purity or impurity. We're human beings who are working with the Shekhinah. So we're human beings plus Shekhinah, because we've invited the things I've just mentioned into our lives. So we have the blessings of the force of the Shekhinah in us, which is really the blessings of God. And it makes us kind of a little bit humans plus, because we have that blessing in our lives. And that's important. If you're not religious and you do the right things, you do invoke and you do have the Shekhinah that comes to you. It's not contingent on being religious. I know this might be a little... Some people might take issue with this, but I'm sorry, I think theologically that's correct. Because when we're in alignment with God, whether we believe in him or not, or whether we know of him or not, being at your still in alignment with his energy, the energy of life is the Shekhinah, Mana, life force, God, energetically manifesting the El Shaddai aspect of God, the current, that spark of life that God put into this dimension. When we line up with that, we get the blessings of that. That's just the way it is. It doesn't require the additional layer. Now, if you're religious, you can pray to God. Now you're opening up a thing that's beyond the Shekhinah, that divine manifestation that you've turned to God and you've opened yourself to Him to receive. God looks for us to turn to Him, and then He gives. He might give if you're not noticing because of His compassion and mercy and wishing to help, but it's a choice whether you take it. If you turn and you focus and you pray, then the fountain of blessings really start to flow. Yes? Psalms chapter 5, verse 9. Lead me, Yahweh, Yahweh, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before me. Well, enemies don't necessarily be enemies in the way of someone wishing us harm or attacking us or trying to mess with us. Our enemies, but you don't do judgment, can be all those habits and that karmic force, that momentum of our river, of our propensity that keeps us from aligning with God. So lead me, Yahweh, in your righteousness, in spite of my enemies. Lead me in your righteousness. Let me think a moment, one moment. So let me just alter this prayer slightly, if I may. I don't want to, I'm changing it and I don't want to go there, but it sort of touches on what I've been saying. Lead me, Yahweh, in your righteousness to doing well. That goes against or pushes or is different or removes myself from my enemies, my karma, my blocks. That you're leading me on the right path and I'm overcoming these things that block me. That in fact are sort of enemies that live within because they keep us from fully aligning with God's holiness. And your prayer is, make your path, your way, the way back home, straight, easy. A road that's straight is easy. It's direct. You get to point A to B in the fastest, smoothest way possible. A road that's not straight goes through mountains, curves, might be bumpy. It's not bumpy necessarily, but it's, you might have to go to city B to get to C. A straight road goes from A to C. It's fast. Also, you could say, let it be the superhighway where you can go 75 miles per hour. That's perfectly paved. That's at 7 in the morning on a weekend where there are no cars, where the air is fresh, where it's smooth. And you get there in record time and you're not tired. And it was easy. That's our prayer. And that's where we ask God's intervention, His engagement, His active engagement in our lives to bestow a fountain of blessing. Amen. May it be so. That is all I have to say today, and I literally barely touched any of my notes. But thank God that is a perfect introduction of the season we're entering into. And I invite you all to start today. Make this a powerful period of change, of rebirth, renaissance. It is a period of rebirth. In Yom Kippur, we are reborn. Into a new year. Very beautiful. I'm just giving thanks to everything I've said because I couldn't have said it better if I had planned it, and probably not nearly as good. This is the entire spiritual path in 2 hours. Everything is based on this. Everything. Everything. It should be the human walk of everyone to improve, to repair. And if a lot of people do it, the world will repair, our societies will repair, our families will repair, and we can restore. Maybe even restore a better world that's nicer, more compassionate, more loving, that assists our children so they don't have the same problems we do, that the road isn't as hard, that it becomes easier and lighter so they don't have all that we have to work through, that our family life doesn't traumatize them like our parents did or grandparents. So they don't have that to work through because we've done our work and we're not passing it on. In fact, because we've done our work, we pass on tools at an early age. So we don't have to learn it in our 30s if we've encountered it, or our 60s. We're taught it at age 7, 8, 15, 16. When they go off to college, they're fully equipped. And it's just second nature. Why can't we live in that world? And we can for them, and we can create it for ourselves. And this period offers that invitation. Let us take a 10-minute break. Let's try to maintain mindfulness. Set up your prayer space. Let us take a 10-minute break. Let's try to maintain mindfulness. Let us take a 10-minute break. Let's try to maintain mindfulness. Line up. Fingertips together. Find your breath. Center. You're centered intentionally, consciously. You light the candle. Because when you've centered, you've entered into the prayer and you've opened that connection. So lighting a candle is no longer lighting a candle to bring in light. You're already in that alignment. So when you bring in the candle, it's a real invitation. As I'm religious, I invite in God's light. The emanation of the light is God's Shekhinah presence, the El Shaddai. He's there. It helps. Who's to say he's not there? I believe he is. It's a light of healing. It's a light of I'm relating to God. It's a light. I've turned on my altar. It's always on, but it's active. Like the flame is active, it's transmitting. I'm receiving. A connection has been, I've lifted up the telephone to God. Telephone's always there, and the emanation of the altar is always there. But by turning on the light, you're picking up the receiver. This is an old-fashioned telephone. Or you're turning on the iPhone and you've pushed the, well, see, it doesn't really exist because you have to dial to turn it on. In the past, you take up the receiver and you hear a dial tone. That's what that is. You're putting on the dial tone and you're calling in. You're actually hitting the number of God. You lift up the incense. You're making the call. Hit the numbers. You're hitting the numbers and then off. Calls there. You're offering. You've made the effort. God, please answer. You place it there. You wave it across your shrine. It's answered, connection made. See the power of a prayer space. Energetically, I have felt that's what happened, so take my word for it. Also, if you think it, so it is, in that respect, for sure. If you feel that's not happening, you've blocked yourself from that happening. In this way, it's relative. Not normally, it's always what you think is what it is. That's crazy talk. But sometimes it is. You don't psychologically break yourself from it. So here, I would say fake it until you make it. Believe it is. And one of these days, you will feel that alignment and you'll like, oh my God, it's become that. It always was. But now you know. You're like, wow. And you're sitting in front of it and praying becomes very, very powerful. With human beings, creating the conditions and being in that environment helps us. Creating conditions where holiness and blessings can flow help us. One reason we have religious spaces. One reason why we have holy places where we go to pilgrimage. Because by being in that energy, and here we're creating it ourselves, we are able to go deeper. And by feeling that connection of blessing is actually extremely healing. And we go away that much stronger. We don't necessarily need a shrine. We could pray anytime. But especially when you're starting out, having that place of calm, that place of taking a breath and actually making these physical acts puts out an intent and a desire through a physical manifestation that tells our body and our energy, reach out, align to something greater than ourselves. And that works with the human condition. When you're further along, or you have that ability already, you don't need the shrine, you don't need to light. You just 1 second you're in there, and the next second you're in prayer and you feel fully connected. The hotline's always open, it's always available. You don't need to do anything. That's the real truth. But we've got our steps. And then even if you live in that truth, there's nothing more beautiful than to go through this tradition of doing something or whatever speaks to you, whatever you feel is appropriate in the way that you need to consider these things that's in keeping with your tradition. Never go against what you feel is right. This is all merely suggestions, but it's a way of assisting, and it's beautiful. The devotion is gorgeous. Devotion, there's nothing, in my humble opinion, more beautiful than devotion on this planet. Now, acts of devotion, which is charity, because you're devoted, so you act a certain way. That's gorgeous too. But prayer and devotion is truly gorgeous and beautiful. And that's what you're doing there. And that is good mitzvah. It's good actions. And it helps heal you. It helps line you up. It clears the blockages of your nadis, which I will explain in future weeks, of your energy channels, heals the blockages in your sephirots, and lines you up with the Merkava chariot. Oh, I've had no diagrams, but this beauty has just been waiting. This is what you are doing when you light your wine. Now, this person has it in perfection. He's a living saint, but that is what we are doing. Or he's us. But we've established that connection, and because we've established it with the grace of God, that connection is there. We are in this central column. You can see at the very top the lights shooting up. So when we do a prayer, we're opening the phone and we're connecting. When we light the shrine and do everything else, that helps us when we feel disconnected to God, when we feel we have problems connecting. It helps us to bridge any breaks that keep us from having that connection. It repairs the copper wire. And even if you have that connection 24/7, it is a gorgeous act of devotion to put up the incense or have a prayer space you come to, because that really becomes the heart of your house, becomes a living expression of your inner cathedral. And you go there to worship and to pray, and you have it at home. And it makes it easier to go there every day or go there when you would like to. Becomes your personal, individualized, sacred space. Perfect. 10 minutes. And let's, if you have a sacred space, line up, take a breath, center. You have a candle lighted. If you have incense, offer it up, and then make yourself comfortable. And we'll do just a brief meditation or whatever comes to me at the moment. And then we'll pray a little bit. We're working now on the repair. All the teachings, all the talking is very helpful. It helps on the road, for sure, and it has blessings, for sure. But this engages directly with our energy and provides an energetic repair, which helps it go faster, easier, because we're working with the misalignments that exist in our bodies and in our minds and our emotions in a very engaged, direct way, which makes straight the path of the Lord. Perfect. 10 minutes.
מי שברא אבותינו מקור החיים לאמותינו הוא יברך את החולים אל הרפאנה
סגבנו תהרנו נורא גיבור דורשי ייחודך, כבבת שומרם, ברכם תרם, רחמי צדקתך. תמיד גומלם, חסין קדוש, חסין קדוש, ברוב טובך נהל עדתך. יחיד גאה לעמך פנה, זוכרי קדושתך. שבתנו קבל ושמע צעקתנו, יודע תעלומות. אנא בכוח גאולת ימינך, תרצה רוח, קבל רינות, עמך סד בנו, תרנו, תרנו נורא. שבתנו קבל ושמע צעקתנו, יודע תעלומות, יודע תעלומות.
ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope what I have shared blesses you, blesses our families, societies, and ultimately blesses our world. May Hashem grant us a beautiful, sacred, and wonderful week. Amen. Till next week. Bye-bye.